Some real positives so far through fall camp. Really competitive practice today. Finished out with some red area. Offense got the upper hand today in that and goal line. Some explosive plays showing up. Haven't seen a lot of those so far through fall camp. Saw some today, which is a real positive. Defense doing a great job attacking the ball. So we can hop into it.
Hey, Zach.
If he's someone who garnered a lot of buzz in the spring and now going into fall too, what have you seen from him as far as development from last year to this year?
More than anything, understanding, right? Knowing what he's going to do, how he needs to be able to execute on the field, what his job is. But yeah, he has really special traits. He could be a special player for us.
Right here on the right, Chris.
Yeah, beyond Kenyon Sadiq, what do you like about the tight end room, and what do you think about how the other guys have been progressing this fall?
Yeah, really pleased with the progress. So obviously, Roger was a guy that could help us last year, and then was injured. But he's come really well back from that injury. And Jamari's a guy that has experience at other places, and we recruited out of high school. Really, high on him as a player, and he's done really well so far in fall camp. And then several other guys there that are really coming along. So like that group.
Front left, James.
Given today's ruling regarding Dalen, how does that impact what reps will be in the secondary for the next 6 days, let alone the couple of weeks thereafter?
Yeah, we have a plan in place, right? We'll adjust.
Here on the left, Aaron.
Can you expand a little bit more on Jamari and sort of what he brings to the table for you guys and how important it was to add a veteran guy like that?
Yeah, it was more about just adding a player that we thought added value, and Jamari certainly adds value. He's got length. He's big body, catches the ball really well. I think there's a pickup that he has to continue to figure out, like what are we doing in the offense, and as he picks that up, he takes great steps forward. But his size, athleticism is unique for that position.
Here on the right, Zach.
The video team announced a new documentary series for this fall camp. I'm curious what you learned from that process last year that you liked about promoting the program, and what led you to do it again this year.
Yeah, I think, we have unbelievable fans. There's players that we're trying to attract to this program. I think it gives them an inside glimpse at, the day-to-day operation, what we do here, what it looks like. So I think it's just a great way to share, what's Oregon football about, with other people. And then there's some great players and great people on our team, right, that their story needs to be shared, right? It gives an opportunity to share those stories.
James.
It's certainly rare, but not unheard of for safeties to go in the first or second round, Dan, as you know, and as somebody who's coached or recruited several of the guys who have over the last 10 years. If Dylan's going to put himself in that position in December or January to be in that position to where it's not even a conversation, what does he have to do in your mind to be the next one of those guys?
December, January, and the NFL draft are so far from my mind. So far from my mind. Today, we got to get better, right? And Dylan's got to continue to get better. Is Dylan a special athlete, special talent? Absolutely, but none of us are thinking about the NFL draft right now, himself included.
Right here on the left, Jared.
You mentioned the deep shots, but Will talked about the quarterback room and Dante just, learning how to take what the defense is giving them. Just what have you seen from that in fall camp so far, and how do you feel like they're progressing in that mindset? Yeah,
some of our explosives today weren't necessarily shots down the field, right? Some of those explosives today were explosive runs, right? And that's credit to the O-line and the backs doing a great job, but taking advantage of opportunities, right? Every defense has a strength, every defense has a weakness, same with offense, right? And, when you really can become a separator is when things are equal, right? When they have a good call, you have a good call, and it's a one-on-one matchup, who's going to go win that matchup, right? So all those things add up, timing, getting in a rhythm, they all matter when it comes to explosive plays.
James.
Couple of third-year defenders we saw quite a bit in the spring, but we saw also changes in body types for both Ashton Porter and Blake Purchase, kind of in opposite directions. You talk about development, Dan, just what went into Porter adding the weight to where
first thing I'd say is, don't put too much stock in what we print is for your weights, right? Because that's for you guys, not necessarily for us. But both those guys, right? I remember we used to say Tez Johnson weighed a lot more than he did. I think you guys at some point figured that out, right? So we print what we want, right? It's not necessarily the truth, right? So surprise, okay? But Ashton, what has he done, man? That guy's worked his tail off and done an unbelievable job of working extremely hard to become a guy that can make an impact for us, knowing his job, his assignment. And I think he would tell you that early on in his career, it took him a while to learn what he had to be able to do here. His body's gotten stronger, right? He's become a dynamic player that can play at multiple positions for us. Same thing with Blake. Right, Blake came in with great athleticism, but his strength has really improved. His understanding of the system has really improved, and he's put himself in a position where he's going to have a role for us, and a big role at that.
Right here on the left, Jared.
Posh, I think after practice 1 or practice 2 mentioned that he got into the defensive line. He wanted to see more competition out of them. Just how do you feel like that's translated here going into week 2?
Good and bad, right? I think we've seen some moments where it was really positive. Like I said today, it probably felt like it was an offensive win, which I know you guys will write a ton of stories about, right? But like ultimately, there's been some really good and some really bad. And what you want in fall camp is competition. There's been some really good competition. What's important is for these guys not to read the press clippings and really focus on what do they have to do to improve. And we've done a better job with gap control. We've done a better job with movement. So there's been some real positive there. We're creating havoc for the quarterback, which is a real positive with those guys.
In the back, Aaron.
Kind of building off of that, you said, competition is a big word that's been used all the first week of fall camp. But at what point do you look for maybe some more consistency now that you got a good amount of practices to kind of start to build that depth chart?
Yeah, probably after our second scrimmage. You still have plenty of time before our first game. So we'll have a scrimmage this weekend. We'll have a scrimmage that next weekend. As we go into that second scrimmage, there'll be some pieces of the puzzle we want, in certain spots. But there's still a lot of competition to be had, and still a lot of guys we got to evaluate where they're at from a winning football standpoint.
James.
You got to see Theron during the spring, albeit 2 less practices than everyone else, but after another week of it and north of 20 practices now, what does he bring to the secondary as a veteran guy who was an all Big Ten guy last year?
Yeah, intelligence. I think he's a really instinctual player. He's sticky at the top, right? At the top of routes. He's going to be engaged, but, made an outstanding play today in practice, where he was able to get out and go make a play on the ball, which, that's what you want. You want guys with ball skills. Got to go back and look at the film and see if he's in the proper position, but production matters. And he's, again, an intelligent player that's able to be tight in coverage.